A former APS middle school English teacher has been arrested for alleged sexual relationships with students. A New Mexico jury has awarded over $40 million to a family after finding that Presbyterian Health Services failed to diagnose their newborn's low blood sugar, which led to permanent brain damage. And a bill spearheaded by two members of New Mexico's congressional delegation that would allow the Department of Defense to sell excess aircraft and parts for wildfire suppression has passed both chambers of Congress unanimously. From the Albuquerque Journal, this is the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. It's Wednesday, June 4th, and we'll have more on those stories, plus a look at other journal headlines and the weather forecast on the other side of this break.
This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee. For 30 years, we've been dedicated to supporting, growing, and preserving the Kirtland National Security Complex. We work tirelessly to enhance military readiness, foster community partnerships, improve quality of life, and promote economic development right here in New Mexico. Join us in our mission to ensure that Kirtland remains a cornerstone of national security and a key provider of quality jobs and investment for all of Greater Albuquerque. Together, we can make a powerful impact. Kirtland Partnership Committee, proudly shaping the future of our national security for 30 years.
A warning to our listeners. This next story involves discussions of child sexual abuse. Listener discretion is advised. A 34-year-old former English teacher at John Adams Middle School here in Albuquerque has been arrested and charged with multiple counts, including criminal sexual penetration of a minor and contributing to delinquency of minors. With more on this, I'm now joined by Journal reporters Noah Kalabach and Nikayla McClellan, who covered this story. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gino.
Absolutely.
So guys, the story you reported on today has some very intense alleged interactions between Patrick Core, the former English teacher at John Adams Middle School, and several students. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what those alleged interactions were?
Yeah, so it appears that Mr. Core was a teacher from 2019 to May of 2024 at this middle school. According to the criminal complaint, there was a field trip to Urban Air, and staffers saw the way that he was interacting with some of the students, and whether it was on the bus or in the actual venue, and were uncomfortable with it. So APS launched an internal investigation in May of last year. Now, obviously, that's near the end of the school year. According to the criminal complaint, the principal of John Adams Middle School and a new teacher were going through Core's old classroom cleaning stuff, and they found, several notes from students kind of displaying an inappropriate relationship. So they went to the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, and since August of 24, they've been conducting this investigation, and some of their findings are pretty intense.
And Nikayla, as Noah just mentioned, some of the findings during this investigation are very intense, but what can you share with us?
One of the biggest things that you see in the investigation is that this teacher had Snapchatted over 50 students about a variety of things, some of them inappropriate, some of them about his personal life, some of them getting into their personal lives. And so the Snapchat that he had was the majority of the findings that police and sheriff counties used for this.
And in your story, guys, you cover the alleged sexual abuse and even an underage pregnancy that Core is accused of. What can you share with us on that front?
It looks like at least one instance, he had a student who was a middle schooler for the 2020-2021 school year, and according to the complaint, he got her Snapchat then. Her cousin wanted alcohol. He gets it for them. They're at his house. They have intercourse. She is 16 at this time, according to the complaint, and pretty disturbing stuff on that end. There's another instance of someone who was interviewed who was 15, and Nikayla, you wrote that portion of the story, so I'll let you speak about it.
Yeah, she basically went to a bar with her stepsister and met the teacher there, and he invited them back to a party at his house. Similar situation to what Noah was talking about, where the student and this teacher had an inappropriate altercation, which ended up with her finding herself pregnant. She did end up getting an abortion about it, but yeah.
And beyond these alleged interactions with students, you guys also report in your story that a school staff member reported receiving explicit photos from Core, and that students also had disturbing nicknames that they would use when they referred to him. So it sounds like he allegedly had a reputation around the school. We now know that he has been arrested. Do we know what comes next?
We do know he's been charged. He is at MDC right now. It looks like he's charged with sexual penetration of a minor on 2 counts, and then contributing to the delinquency of a minor on 3 counts.
From there, it'll be up to, courts whenever he has a court sentencing to determine how long this is going to be. It's up to the court to prove if this is something that is accurate or not. So that'll be up to the courts to decide that from here.
So a very intense story describing some alleged disturbing interactions between this teacher and some students at John Adams Middle School. Journal reporters Nikayla McClellan and Noah Kalabach sharing the latest with us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Gina.
A New Mexico jury has awarded more than $40 million to a family who sued Presbyterian Healthcare Services, claiming medical staff failed to diagnose their newborn son's low blood sugar levels, resulting in severe and permanent brain damage. The child, who was born prematurely in April of 2019, was discharged just 2 days after birth without receiving the routine blood glucose testing required for preterm infants. That's according to the family's attorney, Lisa Curtis. A week later, the baby was readmitted to the hospital in distress and soon experienced brain and heart failure. His condition was eventually traced to hypoglycemia, which had gone undetected since birth. The jury awarded nearly $25 million to the now 6-year-old boy, $825,000 to his parents, Samantha and Patrick Leonard, and $15 million in punitive damages, citing, quote, reckless and wanted behavior by 2 physicians and 2 nurses involved in the case. The verdict followed a 2-week trial before State District Judge Denise Barella Shepard. Presbyterian responded by calling the judgment, quote, excessive, and signaled plans to challenge the verdict. The healthcare system has faced mounting legal scrutiny. Just 6 months earlier, another jury awarded $17 million to a woman who unknowingly carried a surgical instrument inside her for 2 months after a Presbyterian hospital procedure. The case has added fuel to the ongoing debate about New Mexico's medical malpractice environment.
The legislature took up a bill earlier this year that would have changed the Medical Malpractice Act.
My colleague Oliver Udebrook covers courts for the Journal.
It would have put caps on attorney fees in medical malpractice cases. The argument being that New Mexico is too profitable for medical malpractice attorneys, and therefore they come here from other states to try their cases.
Critics argue that high payouts and lenient legal structures are deterring healthcare providers from practicing in the state. In 2022, New Mexico recorded the nation's highest malpractice insurance loss ratio, with insurers paying out 183% of what they collected in premiums. A bill allowing the Department of Defense to sell excess aircraft and parts for wildfire suppression passed both chambers of Congress and is now headed to the president's desk. With more on this development, we're now joined by the Journal's federal government reporter, Kathy Cook. Kathy, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about this legislation and why it's so important to New Mexico?
This bill, in theory, should make it easier to fight wildfires, right? Which have been a growing problem, especially in the western U.S. in recent years, or a really prominent problem at the very least in the western U.S. In January, we saw the Los Angeles wildfires, which killed like 29 people. And of course, we're still living with the effects of wildfires here in New Mexico from last year and from 2022 when we had such a devastating wildfire season. This bill's interesting to me because it reauthorizes a program that Congress has kind of let lapse. So basically, the Department of Defense was allowed to do this in the early 2000s, and then they let that authority lapse, and then they were allowed to do it again. They were authorized by Congress to do it again from like 2012 to 2017. And since 2017, it's been lapsed. And so it's just interesting to see something with bipartisan support sail through so easily in the House today.
And Kathy, as you touched on right there, it is a rarity that anything passes both chambers of Congress with unanimous support. But the tie-in to New Mexico here is that this legislation was really spearheaded by Senator Martin Heinrich and Representative Gabe Vasquez.
Right. Yeah. When we think about our Congress people, individual pieces of legislation that they sponsor don't actually pass and get signed into law all that often, right? Congress passes a lot of big bills with a lot of things, other pieces of legislation stuffed into them, but it's kind of unusual for a smaller bill that does one thing to actually pass and get signed into law. Representative Vasquez, who I spoke with earlier today, authored the bill in the House, and he said that there's an Albuquerque-based company that does aerial wildfire suppression that will actually benefit from this bill if it gets signed into law.
There is a company called 10 Tanker Air Carrier. They're located in Albuquerque, and they currently don't have a sufficient supply of spare engines and aircraft parts. In particular, there's a shortage of brakes for some of their existing aircraft. So this legislation now allows 10 Tanker Air Carrier to purchase those parts from the Department of Defense directly and be able to maximize the effectiveness of its fleet moving forward.
Basically, they have the big planes that go out and deliver fire retardant on fires, and they're experiencing a shortage in some of those parts. So they're some of the plane parts that they need to keep their planes running. They can't get the parts they need quickly enough, and so he believes that this bill will help them them get those plane parts faster.
And Kathy, we've touched on it several times during this conversation about how the bipartisan support in both chambers of Congress really helped get this legislation over the finish line, and it should really come as no surprise that a lot of support came from lawmakers who represent western states that also face similar wildfire challenges to New Mexico.
Right. It's definitely notable that some of the biggest proponents of this bill have been legislators from states like New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Montana, which are all places that deal with really serious wildfires. And the state of Washington, you know, the person who introduced it in the House was a Republican representative from the state of Washington. And so those are all places that in recent years have experienced really serious wildfires.
So this key piece of legislation really should help a lot of western states as wildfire season approaches. Journal Federal Government reporter Kathy Cook filling us in on the latest. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you, Gino.
In other headlines from the newsroom, the New Mexico Court of Appeals has dismissed a high-profile lawsuit aiming to curb oil and gas drilling in the state. Filed in 2023 by Native American activists and environmental groups, the suit argued that the state's inaction on pollution controls violated constitutional protections for a, quote, beautiful and healthful environment. A 3-judge panel ruled that this constitutional clause does not guarantee individuals the right to be free from pollution, nor does it compel legislative or executive action. The decision was praised by the oil and gas industry, which emphasized the importance of respecting the separation of powers. Critics, however, said the ruling undermines public health and environmental protections and vowed to appeal to the state's Supreme Court. The lawsuit's dismissal comes amid surging oil production in New Mexico, which now supplies about 35% of the state's projected revenue. Environmentalists warn that this boom has worsened pollution and health problems in regions like the Permian Basin. A 14-year-old boy, Alejandro Roman, was shot and killed Monday night in Las Cruces near Solano Drive and Spruce Avenue. Police say the shooting, which occurred around 9 p.m., may have resulted from a road rage confrontation, though it's unclear whether Roman was in a vehicle or on foot at the time. No arrests have been made, and authorities are seeking public tips to add to the investigation. Roman's death adds to the growing pattern of youth gun violence in the city. In March, 3 teens were killed during a car meetup, allegedly by other teenagers who are now facing murder charges. More recently, police have shot 2 armed teens in separate incidences, one in early May and another in March, both of which have raised further concerns over the rise in armed confrontations involving young people. And New Mexico's measles outbreak has expanded to San Juan County, marking the 7th county with a confirmed case. Health officials reported a case involving a child under 4 who had received 1 MMR vaccine dose and contracted the virus on a domestic flight. Another adult case was reported in Lee County, bringing the statewide total to 61 cases, of which 24 involved children under the age of 4 and 37 adults. The New Mexico Department of Health, or NMDOH, warns that recent exposures may have occurred at multiple medical centers, including San Juan Regional Medical Center, Health Partners Pediatrics Clinic, and Lee Hobbs Medical Clinic. In response, MMR vaccination rates have doubled since February 1st, with over 32,000 doses administered. Symptoms of measles include cough, runny nose, red eyes, followed by a fever and a rash. Free MMR vaccines are available with no appointment at public health offices in Farmington and Hobbs during weekday hours. Health officials stress the importance of being up to date on vaccinations, especially before traveling. The leading news is powered by the journalism of the Albuquerque Journal. If you enjoy hearing all of the latest news we share with you on a daily basis, please consider becoming a digital subscriber by utilizing our discount code in our show notes. Every subscription helps support local journalism and allows us to provide the stories that matter to you. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast, there is a chance of showers today and then possibility of a thunderstorm after 12 p.m., partly sunny with a high near 81. As for this evening, there's a 20% chance of showers and thunderstorms before midnight, partly cloudy with a low around 56. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. That's the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. We'll be back tomorrow.